December 17, 1944. 0530 hours. Hansfeld, Belgium. The Maybach, HL230P45 engine, 690 horsepower, 23 liters of displacement, turned over twice, then stopped. SS Obersturmbannführer Joachim Peiper climbed down from his command vehicle. His boots hit frozen Belgian soil. Around him, the most powerful armored spearhead assembled for Operation Waffen SS sat motionless. Kampfgruppe Peiper, Panthers, King Tigers, half-tracks, 5,000 of Germany's most elite Waffen SS soldiers, all paralyzed by empty fuel tanks. The column stretched 10 miles through the Ardennes forest, engines cooling, metal contracting in the December air. Through the morning fog, Peiper could see the American position ahead, a supply depot for the U.S. 99th Infantry Division. If you're interested in how wars are actually decided by logistics, math, and doctrine, subscribe now, turn on notifications, and stay tuned for more in-depth World War analysis. Let's continue. The Americans had fled so quickly they'd left fires still burning in oil drums, coffee still hot in metal cups. And there, lined up in the gray light, stood rows of olive-drab jerry cans. Thousands of them. Peiper approached. An adjutant pried open a can. High-octane gasoline. American, 50,000 gallons. For a German commander who measured fuel by the liter, this was a miracle. But miracles in industrial warfare are a form of mathematics. And the mathematics were about to reveal something far worse than an empty tank. The problem was simple arithmetic. Kampfgruppe Peiper's objective, the Meuse River. Distance, 65 miles. Fuel allocated, 31,000 gallons, enough for 50 miles of combat operations. The deficit was built into the plan before the first engine started. A King Tiger consumed 2.5 gallons per mile in combat. In the steep, frozen terrain of the Ardennes, that figure increased by 40%. A Panther burned 1.5 gallons per mile. The column had covered 20 miles from their starting position and consumed 40% of their fuel doing it. 2 days earlier, at the final briefing near Lossheim, General Sepp Dietrich had been blunt. "You will have enough fuel to reach the Meuse if you capture American supplies." This was not strategy. This was desperation formalized into operational planning. By December 1944, Allied bombing had reduced Germany's synthetic fuel production by 90%. The Luna Works, which had produced 175,000 tons of fuel in April, managed 5,000 tons by September. The hydrogenation plants at Pölitz, Bleckhammer, and Brüx operated at less than 10% capacity. The Luftwaffe was grounding aircraft. Pilot training had been cut from 250 flight hours to 60. The German Navy's surface fleet had ceased operations. On the home front, the Gestapo investigated black market theft of individual leaders. Meanwhile, the United States produced 1.8 billion barrels of crude oil in 1944. Germany, including all synthetic production and captured Romanian fields, managed 33 million barrels. Less than 2% of American output. The Third Reich was waging mechanized warfare with horse-drawn mathematics. At Hansfeld, Peiper's men began the frantic work of refueling. Captured American POWs from the 394th Infantry Regiment were forced at gunpoint to pour fuel into German tanks, in the smell of high-octane gasoline mixed with fear in the freezing air. 19 of those prisoners would not survive the morning. As the jerry cans emptied into German fuel tanks, the mechanics noticed something wrong. The American gasoline was 80 octane or higher, aviation-grade fuel mixed with motor stock. German engines, particularly the temperamental Maybachs, were designed for 74 octane. The American fuel was too volatile, too powerful. Several engines began to knock. Fuel lines designed for lower-grade petroleum struggled with the refined American product. The miracle was poisoning its recipients. A sergeant named Wilhelm Hoffmann found shipping manifests in the depot office. He could read English. The papers traced this fuel's journey. Texas oil fields to New York refineries, across the Atlantic to Liverpool, and across the Channel to Normandy, trucked 400 miles to this frozen Belgian crossroads, 6,000 miles in less than 6 weeks. Hoffmann showed the papers to Peiper. The Obersturmbannführer read them twice, then crumpled them in his fist. Both men understood what 6,000 miles of casual logistics meant. In a stack of Stars and Stripes newspapers dated December 15, 2 days old, a headline celebrated a new fuel pipeline from Cherbourg to Verdun. Capacity: 300,000 gallons per day. A single pipeline delivering more fuel daily than Kampfgruppe Peiper would consume in the entire offensive. Peiper pushed forward. Bühlingen by noon. Ligneville by afternoon. At the Bonnier crossroads near Malmedy, his forces murdered 84 American prisoners. Even this atrocity was connected to the fuel equation, where Peiper could not spare gasoline to transport prisoners to the rear. By evening on December 17th, the spearhead reached Stavelot. Here was the prize: a major American fuel depot. Over 2 million gallons, enough to guarantee reaching the Meuse, enough to change the offensive's trajectory. But Peiper didn't know where it was. The depot sat 300 yards north of town, hidden from the main road. German maps showed nothing. His reconnaissance had failed. While Peiper's advance guard probed Stavelot's defenses, Captain John Brewster of the 291st Engineer Combat Battalion received his orders. Deny fuel to the enemy at all costs. The Stavelot depot contained 2,189,000 gallons of gasoline in jerry cans stacked across 15 acres. Pyramids of fuel 3 meters high, extending 200 meters. At 16:30, as German vehicles approached, Brewster gave the order. Engineers poured gasoline trails between the stacks. White phosphorus grenades were distributed. Technical Sergeant Paul Solis threw the first grenade. The explosion was immediate. A wall of fire shot 100 feet into the December sky. Within minutes, 15 acres of fuel became an inferno visible for miles. Peiper's lead tanks arrived to find a pillar of black smoke rising 1,000 feet into the air. The fire would burn for 3 days, 2 million gallons, enough to power his entire division to Antwerp and back. Burning. His driver later described the moment. The Obersturmbannführer stood on his turret watching the flames. He said nothing for 5 minutes. Then he climbed down and said, "They can afford to burn 2 million gallons to deny it to us. What are we doing here?" Across the Ardennes, American engineers were destroying fuel rather than risk capture. At Spa, 2.5 million gallons burned. At Trois Ponts, 1.1 million gallons. In the first week of the offensive, Americans deliberately destroyed over 8 million gallons, more than Germany had allocated for the entire operation. The ability to casually destroy millions of gallons was rooted in a supply system beyond German comprehension. The Pluto pipeline under the ocean, pumped 1 million gallons daily across the English Channel. The Cherbourg-Paris line delivered 800,000 gallons daily. The Seine line moved 650,000. American forces in Northwest Europe consumed 7.5 million gallons per day, while receiving 8.2 million. They were building reserves during offensive operations. On December 18th, our Colonel James Snyder, Chief Logistics Officer for 1st Army, recorded in his daily report, "Fuel receipts. Yesterday, 1,847,000 gallons. Fuel issued, 1,623,000 gallons. Net gain to reserves, 224,000 gallons." That single day's surplus exceeded Kampfgruppe Peiper's total allocation. Meanwhile, American C-47s flew 316 sorties, delivering supplies to surrounded Bastogne, including 160,000 gallons of fuel. The Americans were flying more fuel to a besieged garrison than Peiper's entire force possessed. By December 21st, Kampfgruppe Peiper was surrounded at L'Église. 39 tanks remained operational, but operational meant nothing without fuel. Perhaps 1,000 gallons remained, enough for one engagement or retreat, but not both. American forces encircling L'Église, 31st Infantry Division, 82nd Airborne, U 3rd Armored, had a combined fuel allocation of 340,000 gallons for that single day. An American private wrote home, "We've got Germans surrounded who ran out of gas. Our captain jokes we use more fuel heating coffee than they have for their tanks." On the night of December 23rd, Peiper made his decision. The remaining fuel was drained from every vehicle, perhaps 200 gallons total. Engines were destroyed with the last ammunition. 39 perfect tanks, 70 half-tracks, and 177 other vehicles were abandoned. Peiper and approximately 770 survivors slipped through American lines on foot. Of the 5,000 men who began the offensive, less than 16% returned. The Tiger tank, actually a King Tiger, still sits in the L'Église Museum today. Fuel gauge empty, a monument to when tactical excellence met logistical reality and lost. 4 hours after Peiper abandoned it, American salvage teams arrived. Major Robert Harrison's report noted the fuel required to recover the abandoned German armor: 8,000 gallons. Source: local reserves. Time: 4 hours. What was impossible for Germany, 8,000 gallons to save their finest tanks, was beneath American notice. A minor requisition from local stocks. Field Marshal Walter Model, receiving reports of the captured and destroyed American supplies, told his chief of staff, "We are not fighting the same war." General Hasso von Manteuffel, commanding 5th Panzer Army, wrote, "When I learned Americans had destroyed 8 million gallons rather than risk our capturing it, I knew the offensive had failed before it began." A captured German colonel told his interrogators, "Your soldiers throw away chocolate. My men haven't seen chocolate in 2 years. You burn millions of gallons. We measure by the liter. How can we fight such abundance?" The answer was simple. You cannot. In industrial warfare, production supersedes tactics. Abundance defeats dedication. The German soldier of 1944 was arguably better trained, more experienced, more motivated. It didn't matter. Each American soldier was supported by 67 pounds of supplies daily. Each German received 3. The Battle of the Bulge killed 19,000 Americans and perhaps 100,000 Germans. It destroyed the Wehrmacht's last reserves, but its lasting impact was simpler. It spread the knowledge through every frozen German foxhole, word that they were fighting an enemy who measured victory in oceans, while they measured defeat in drops. Joachim Peiper was imprisoned for war crimes until 1956. On July 14, 1976, he was murdered at his home in France by unknown assailants. The mathematics of the Ardennes had followed him for 32 years. If you enjoyed this story, hit subscribe for more World War II historical deep dives every week. Thanks for watching.